Hello, my name is Galena. I'm the fiancé of Joshua Lee McCollister, who was murdered on July 8th by Deunn Willis and robbed by Danielle Durand. I had a really beautiful dream about Josh last night. It's the 5th dream I've had about him since he died. And it's part of my culture to really pay a lot of attention to dreams. And there's a couple people in my and Josh's family that are, we like to share what dreams about him we have. So I'm going to record it now. There's a lot of symbology in it, a lot of meaning. Josh and I were at a beach together. Definitely not a Fort Bragg beach. I'm going to believe that it's at that celestial version of Lincoln City that I like to think he's at. We were sitting together in the sand collecting seashells. They're my favorite kind of seashells, except on Earth they are brown and tan and white, and where he is, they're shaped the same way, but the colors are different. They're bright purple, bright yellow, bright red. Same thing, just a little bit more beautiful. And he was explaining to me, I think, how that is where he is. This just a regular world. It's just things that are a little bit better, a little bit nicer. And this time he kissed me goodbye. And I was inside this house that I think was supposed to be his. I'm saying it was supposed to be his because it was so incredibly messy. Josh was a bit of a hoarder. This place was a pigsty, which is exactly what I would expect if he has a house on the other side, that it would be horrifically messy. And the room was filled with all the stuff that he'd collected for me. I was trying to put it away. It was all these dresses and skirts that I was trying to hang up in the closet, some of which fit me and some of which, he couldn't figure out what my size was. They were all colored. Nothing was black that he'd saved for me. And that's what I think will happen when I get to the other side. I'll be able to wear color again. It made me reflect on how before Josh moved to Fort Bragg, I could only wear pants. When I was young, I wore ankle-length skirts because, again, that's my culture. Roma women wear long skirts, but things with the instigator had gotten so bad. Had terrible anxiety all the time. I couldn't wear dresses anymore. I couldn't wear skirts anymore. I couldn't wear my hair long. Could barely wear makeup. I didn't understand until I was in a relationship with Josh just how much I had changed my appearance trying to feel safer around this person. One thing I'm going to say about my marriage is I got married when I was very young. And I really didn't know what I was in for. I think nobody that gets married when they're 20 really does. But one thing that's so important to marriage is you need to be married to someone who is spiritually compatible with you, has the same dreams, same goals, same ambitions, same things they want out of life as you do. And the most delicate thing I could say is that my husband and I were not compatible in any of these ways at all. That's not to say anything bad about him or me. We didn't mesh the right way. We weren't right for each other on those things. He loves his children. He does. He didn't want to be a father, though. And I from the time I was about 5 years old, I knew that the only thing that I wanted out of life was I wanted to be the wife of a good man, and I wanted a house full of babies. Like, the writing, being a rabbi, that's great and all, but I just wanted to be a wife and mother. That's all. And Josh and I were very simpatico about that. You know, we didn't want to be famous, we didn't want to be rich. All we wanted was to be far away from other people, being husband and wife and raising the babies. That's it. We were just so simpatico. You know, the seashells thing, it's very deeply meaningful to me because I think it was either the same day or the next day after Josh went to the murder cabin in Compton for the first time. He took me aside and he gave me a handful of seashells. Same kind, my favorite kind. This is a lot of why they're my favorite kind, is because he gave them to me. And he said to me, because he'd been impacted very deeply from a psychological place and a spiritual place from being out at that murder cabin. It had hit him very hard. And also, it had hit him exactly what I'd had to go through all these years. So he gave me these seashells and he said to me, "These are not from me. These are from the girls that are buried out there. They're saying they wanted you to be thanked for all of your efforts to bring them home to their families, for everything you've done over the years." Nobody I ever met understood the emotional toll I have had over the years fighting to bring these girls home to their parents. Nobody but Josh McCollister has ever really understood it. I don't think anybody but Josh McCollister could understand it. And that's why I'm sure I dreamed about him giving me seashells in that dream, because it was something that was really kind of sacred for the two of us. He was so kind to me about what my father was. The instigator had been once upon a time. I'd once upon a time thought that he had my back, but he took the information and he really twisted it to his advantage. Like, if we were arguing, he'd yell at me, "I'm just like my father," because he knows that that's the thing to say to me, to hurt me the worst, I think, because I've tried my entire life not to be like my father. Even before I knew what he was, I knew that that was exactly what I did not want to be when I grew up. When the story about my father went viral, the instigator effectively hung me out to dry because he'd been in the posse, because he'd known me as long as he had. He had so much information that was important, things that he had firsthand seen. And he didn't tell people that information. He kept it to himself. And this was just so much bigger than the fact he and I weren't getting along. This was something that directly impacted the girls and their families. And he kept it to himself. And he started to sabotage. He started to sabotage things getting solved. One thing that he did that really hurt me was he came at my kids effectively. He started telling everybody and their dog who would listen that I was a terrible mother. And only one person, to the best of my knowledge, actually called him out on this and said, "You know that's not true. She's a wonderful mother. You know this." But everybody else who he was saying it to, these were not people that liked me, and I really didn't care that they didn't like me. I don't consider the opinions of a bunch of drug dealers about my maternal instinct important, frankly. But this is what he put about, that I was a bad mother. And the specific line that he used was that I use my children as props regarding my father being a serial killer. I don't even know what the heck that means. I guess when he was on meth, this sounded great to him, but I've seen him, that he told multiple people this, that the kids are just props. I don't really love them, I'm just using them. It's so painful when you want your children as much as I do, when you love your children as much as I do. And you know that you've got this task that you got to get done. There was no choice about coming forward about what my father was. No choice at all. Because I truly believe in accountability to God and accountability to all those victims on the other side. There was no choice. I had to do this. I always had to do this. And the entire time that I was trying to bring those daughters back to their families and sons, I was having to worry about my own children being taken away by CPS because of this person trying to hurt me like that. Now, I brought up before that I had CPS come to my door and interview me for an hour and a half because I changed the dentist appointment date. You'd think that's an exaggeration. It is not. That is exactly what happened. I don't know how many interviews with CPS during that time period I had to deal with, like maybe 4, maybe 5. It was different workers. Every time I'd think I'd wrap things up with one worker, it would turn out there was a problem with another worker. And I'd have to start all over at the beginning again. I'd have to say, this guy is on meth. I would show photographs of him like covered in meth sores, and I'd say, how is this the person that you're questioning whether or not I'm a good mother? He's clearly out of his head on drugs. And I just didn't understand why this kept happening. The last time, right before I fled Fort Bragg, a CPS worker came to the house, and she accidentally let it slip that she wasn't there because of him making a report. She was there because the enabler had made a report. That the enabler had told CPS that I wasn't feeding my baby food, just formula. Like I said, the enabler had a lot of power in Mendocino County, definitely in Fort Bragg. And I pointed out that the enabler had probably been in my house maybe 5 times in 2 years, never for more than an hour. There's no way she would know what I feed my baby. It's completely impossible that she would know. So why was this government agency in my house taking her word for anything? And I was lucky that on this occasion, someone that did actually have the power to say what was going on was there. I had a respite worker come to my house for several hours, 3 times a week, because my children are autistic. So this is a person that actually was in a position to know. And that person just laid it out. No, this is a harassment situation. You know, I see how she treats the kids. I see what she feeds the kids. And the CPS worker talked to this person outside. You know, what I'd have to say to the instigator, and more to the point, the enabler about this, it's illegal to make false reports about somebody. And, you know, I don't think for 2 seconds that I'm special about this. I am sure that the enabler has probably made false reports about other parents who have stood up to her and said, no, you can't have whatever it is that you want. And she knows her way around the government agencies. She knows who to ask for favors. It's just that simple. I like to think that when I finally say who she is, maybe some other parent who's had their life come at in this way, that's been stalked by this way, because I doubt I'm the only person she's ever stalked, I'd like to think that maybe they would be able to at least be believed finally that this person, this, frankly, to my mind, evil, narcissistic person is capable of doing this. You know, while Josh was still alive, I wrote this person a cease and desist letter. Leave me alone, is essentially what it said. And I pointed out to her that she had made false reports to government agencies, multiple government agencies that I'd have been having to deal with for months. I said, this is illegal. If you do this again, there's going to be legal repercussions for you. Well, she couldn't take a cease and desist letter the way it's meant to be taken. You know, she wrote me back within, I think, 12 or 24 hours, you can't tell me what to do. While Josh was alive, there was still that opportunity to get away, shut all of this trauma in a box in my mind, and just deal with it years from now. Deal with the PTSD, frankly, that I have from this whole incident. But he's dead. There's no apology she can ever give him. There's no apology she can ever give me for the loss of him, which would not have happened if she had just left the two of us alone. So I'm going to say to her again, anybody who knows her, you know, who knows who I'm talking about. What douchebag did to me and Josh was a crappy thing to do. You know, him spreading the rumor that I was being held against my will, it's bad, but it's not illegal. What she did was illegal. And I have no intention to stop doing these videos, stop putting pressure on until she is inside a prison cell. That's where she belongs. This stuff isn't just like coming up with bad rumors. When you try to have someone's children taken away from them, to get your way, to just be that cruel, no, that's illegal. And there's records of it at the CPS office, which I asked for my records more than one time and they wouldn't give them to me. Eventually they will, though. I truly hope that she winds up inside of a prison cell at the end of all this. You know, Josh didn't record videos, reels. He didn't do that. But before he died, he did upload 2 videos, just a couple days before he died, and both of them were for me. Other people wouldn't understand the messages in these videos, but I did. And one of them was a direct screw you to the enabler. It's so funny that he actually took the time right before he died to give her essentially a middle finger. You know, I know that he knew that he was going to die soon. I've seen the evidence of it again and again and again. And I just think it's hilarious. As much as he hated her and as much as she hated him, that he actually went out on the note of, you know, saying what a horrible person he thought she was. I'll settle for a prison cell for her. Nothing less. Absolutely nothing less.